this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. Today with a, for me, very exciting video. I'm trying a new technique. Well, the technique itself is not that new. It's basically making watercolor blobs. But what is new, and anyway to me, is something which is called Hirameki. This is how I pronounce it. It might not be properly pronounced. It is an art form from Japan. And what it is, it's seeing something like in blobs or even in clouds and then drawing around it to basically emphasize whatever you see. A crafty friend of mine had a book yesterday in the local craft group and she was scribbling away and I thought, what is this? And yeah, that really inspired me to create something today from really basic shapes, and I would like to then turn these pictures into cards. What I have here is some watercolor paint. Mine is from Artway. I think I just got this from Amazon. You don't need watercolor paints. You can use any water reactive paint, so you can use your oxides, your element inks, and just use them with water to create sort of undefined blobs. You can even use acrylic paints, water them down, but I'm always a bit suspicious whether I can draw on acrylic paints because sometimes it resists other media. And I'm just using this mixed media paper from Art Studio. I got that at the range. I do have watercolor paper, can't find it really. Probably have stored it away somewhere. So I'm just using that. This is a 300 GSM, so that should hold water quite nicely. It does advertise that it's useful for watercolor, so I shall just be using this. And my idea is to, when I create this, because I want to use the images on cards, I will just do 6 blobs and leave enough space around these blobs to then draw around these. When you get the books or when you see people online, I just checked out something this morning. Sometimes I have them very close together, which is fine, but because I want to make cards, I leave some space. So I've got here some water. I've also got, as I said, I've got my brush here and my paints. I decided to go for some lighter colours, so I won't be using like the dark blue and the dark purple because I want to draw over them. So all I'm doing now is just to activate these paints a little bit. Starting with a yellow, I think. They're fairly vibrant, these colours. They're not the best watercolours, but for my purposes they're fine. And I've also got one of these Lavinia Stamps mop brushes, I think they call them. So it's a very soft brush, and I thought this is great for just putting down some blobs. And I try to be as unintentional as I can when I put down the water. So I'm putting water down first. It actually looks like it's got a bit of blue ink in there, and then I'm just adding the paint, and hopefully the paint will run with that water to leave a shape. I'm just adding it. I'm not thinking about the shape, and I hope I've got enough light on here. Just adding more color. You can introduce another color. I might just do that and go in with a little bit of orange. Hopefully that mixes nicely. Said I'm not thinking about anything, so I might just move that a little bit so that the paint runs into that residue of water that I can see there. Blends it actually quite nicely, and then I'm just leaving that as it is. So doing another one down here again. Ooh, this happened with that one as well, so I've made a big, I don't know if the camera picked that up, made a big sort of longish bit. So I'm just putting it down, just trying to zoom in a little bit as well, because don't know what the camera does pick up. So I'm going in with some red this time. Some of this sort of darker or pinkish red. See, so that sits nicely within that water. So if you wanted to, you can obviously have a different brush, and then you have less round shapes. This obviously, the brush creates quite round shapes. So I will add off camera 4 more. Maybe I do use a little bit of the blue, but not the darkest ones, and a little bit of green. And then I'm leaving this to dry. I don't want to move the colour about with my heat tool, but you could do that. It's really up to you, because all we do is create some blobs. I might even do a trial run with a water reactive ink pad, just to show you that as well, what you can do. And I will do this on camera in a sec. I just wanted to show you this. I've got quite a bit of water on this one here, same on this blob. So I'm actually manipulating it a little bit rather than leaving the blob there. So I can move a little bit in this area and leave that to spread. But I can also spread it out a little bit without thinking of what I'm going to create it into. But I think that's okay. Yeah, and I will do the same on the red one here. So just move that a bit. I've also got 2 or 3 specks here. I can just blend them in a little bit if I wanted to, and just shift this about a bit. So for the water reactive inks, basically same technique. I'm putting some blue atoll on an acrylic block here, or you can use a tile or anything that's non-porous. And then I haven't cleaned my water, so I'm just applying another blob here. I would still find it's not dirty water. I do have a hair in there though, so sure I've got enough water here. And then I'm using my brush here, my water brush. I'm going to mix this with water, and then can add this here. Can you see why you don't need watercolor paint to create this? And depending on your ink or how much you apply, you can get quite a solid color, or it can be quite transparent. So that's really nice. And you could, if you wanted to, after it's dried, you could come back with another little bit of water, but I leave it as it is. So I think I might do one more with water reactive ink pad, and as I said, then I'm coming back. I haven't got a clue how long this takes to dry. It might actually be a few hours. I've got quite a lot of ink on here, and I'm also aware that this is going to warp, but that's not a problem. If I might put it through the die cutting machine later to flatten it out. I'm just popping in one more time. I hope I'm focusing here. When you have got puddles like this here, that one I showed you before, some of them, although I spread them out with a brush, they did come back. So you can always use a little bit of tissue paper, just dab it in there and soak this excess water up. You don't distort the shape that way, but you give it a better chance to dry. It is about an hour and a half later, and these have mostly dried. They're still a bit damp in the middle, some of them, but you can see the results here. So what you do in the second step when you've got these blobs is have a look what you see and what inspires you to draw on these. For this one here, for example, I can see a face, this being hair, a nose, and then the lips here, and a chin, maybe with a baseball cap or something on the top. But the advantage of having it like this, I can also turn it around. This could even be like a fluffy cat with a bit of a tail at the back. That might be quite nice as an idea for a card. So it's really about you. Again, I can see cat's ears here and a cat body here. You don't need to use the whole design, so you can just use part of that. I'll show you in a moment what I mean and what we do with it. Or I've seen examples where people extend it massively and just use the coloured bit for part of the whole design. So this one, I'm not sure again. I've got sort of cat's ears there. So, But yeah, if I turn it around, I might even see something else. Maybe, yeah, again, a person, bald head, a big nose, and this as the chin. And yeah, maybe a bit of wavy hair, could be an old guy, you know. This one, actually, when I created it, I thought I could turn that into some sort of monster, because I think that's quite regular. So it doesn't have to be characters or animals, it can be objects as well. So I'm not sure about this one here. Maybe an armchair, yeah, that would work. So I have to think, obviously, when I use these, what would be useful for a card. This one is the Elements ink, and I also added some of the lime punch because that's what I used for this one here. So yeah, it's really what you see. It's like, you know, when people look at clouds, they've got different ideas, different shapes they see. So with this one, I have to think a little bit longer, but I had an idea for this little one. Obviously the colour helps up a little bit to inspire me, but I saw a birdie with, again, with a big nose or beak, and I thought it reminds me a little bit of Woodstock from the Peanuts. So let me zoom in a little bit. So what you basically do in the second step is you need a fine liner, a black fine liner. Well, you could use other colours, but that's what I've seen online. And I'm just using this one here. I think I bought that at Clinton's. I'm sure they still had it the other week. What I like about this one here, I can use it at an angle. I've got some other ones here. I bought these in Germany at Action, and some of them are, this one's okay, but some of them are a bit tricky to use at an angle, and that's what I want to do. I've got a bit of a either pears from the brush there or from my cat. So I would just go in and trace a little bit, you know, the sort of hairs or the shapes I've got here. By the way, I'm not an expert, as I said before. I only discovered this yesterday, but I thought I'd just go along with it. So, and then here, because I've got a bit of that, I can, for your tail feathers, but you can go off a little bit. You can go into the white areas. You don't have to follow the shape completely, but I'll do this here, and then I'll have to think about how I include the beak. So I would see, that's the problem with being on an angle, and maybe it's still a little bit wet. So, oh, looks more like a dragon now, which is fine. I think I turned this into a dragon. So that would be really cute. So obviously it needs a good characterful eye. I'm hoping I'm zoomed in enough. So, and then I'll have to think, I need some sort of wing for the dragon. So maybe extend this here. Maybe even all the way down there. Yeah, that looks okay. And then obviously, as I said, I can go into the white areas, and I can now add some feet here. There's a bit of a doodling thing, and I'm not great with doodling, but I like that. I really like that. So do I need anything else? No, I think this would be nice, just as an image as it is. So I could do, does he need a fancy tail? No, I'll leave it like a dragon monster. I think this is fine. So I'll have a little look at my other ones again, have a little think what I see and what I can create. So I've created 5 pictures here. I still haven't used this one. As I said, I can imagine an armchair or something, but I'm not worried about maybe putting it in the bin. And there's also a few pictures here that are not great. But I think the nice thing about this is it, you know, you get creative, and I think it's great for, you know, if you've got problems with your mojo, if your mojo has gone. So that's the one you've seen. That's my second one. At first I thought I'd create some sort of dog, but I completely, you know, left the shape, so I just added some feet, but I think that's going in the bin. But it's nice to have a play around. This one I'm actually really pleased with. So very simple. I just saw a man's face here, and then this sort of happened with the scarf and that here. And as I said, you can add things outside of the blob. So yeah, I think this is really cute. Not sure what card I would use this on, but I might just put them in my glue book. So yeah, then with this one I just had a little play. I started off with the sort of, well, animal or cat face there, and had a play with a shape. Obviously it looks like a blob thing, like a monster, but again, you know, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a shape that we all know. It just kind of a bit of play. And this one, although I have a cat, I'm not very good at drawing cats. So again, I tried the cat at the top here, but the bottom obviously is a bit weird. So, but it's nice to have a play. And yeah, I encourage you to have a go yourself. So I think I will definitely create a card with this one. It will be a plain card. And I think I will do this off camera. I'll have a little think whether I want to do anything fancy. But I want to show how you can use images like that on a card. Before the daylight goes, I thought I'd just show you 2 cards, or 1.5, because I haven't finished the one below yet. I think the best thing to do with little drawings or paintings like this is to give them a sort of frame. So with this one, I decided to die cut it with this fancy frame, but use the bigger size to cut another piece. This is from yellow cardstock, to tie in the colours of that image. And I just put it sideways just to fill the 6x6 card. Obviously there are loads of things you can do. You can have more layers, but I think it's a good idea to pick up one of the colours from your image, and as I said, to give it some sort of frame. I left the sentiment a bit sort of generic, is that the right word? Just for you, because then I can use it for various occasions, because it doesn't really have a topic, the picture. But I thought this is really nice. And for the other one, I decided, oh, before I forget that, I stuck this down flat with liquid glue, but the image itself I put on foam pads, mainly to allow for the fact that it was a bit wobbly, because of the way it had dried. And although I did put it through the die cutting machine, it didn't get rid of it completely. So I thought that was one way to compensate for the slightly uneven piece of paper. So for this one here, which is, I'm being mindful because I've already got glue tape on here, I'm using this gentleman here. But I decided to do it the other way around, to have a frame on the outside, not to have something on the back. So what I've done is I just used one of my ticket dies, and I die cut this from a scrap piece of cardstock. This is a 4x6 card, and eventually I cut this down a little bit more. And then I've dry embossed this and used the same ink I used for this, which was the blue atoll, just the residue on my ink blending brush to colour this in a little bit, just to go all over it. If you see the comparison there, because this was a bit too harsh white for my taste. And I also used the same ink brush plus the lime punch one to ink blend it on a little scrap of paper, then stamped the birthday wishes. I actually made 2 lots of that to because it was a thinner cardstock, glued them together, so I've got a sturdy sentiment piece that ties in with the colours. So again, pick some colours that go with your image, or use the colours you already have used on the image to create the background or the frame. But why I stopped and didn't finish this, I just wanted to show you how I place this behind here, because I want to put this one up on foam pads. So I have put again some, this is some cheap double-sided adhesive tape, mainly because again this is pretty warped and I didn't want to use any more liquid glue, and again this is to allow for this. With me putting this on foam pads, I think that will disguise the slightly warped paper as well. So I'm just lining my frame up next to the card so that I can mark where I've got my frame. So let's say that's the top of the frame, that's the bottom of the frame. You could even do it like this, to be honest. I don't know why I put it next to it, but obviously this is now a little bit lower, so when you've done that you need to allow to go a bit higher, which I've already done. And I've already cut this to size a little bit, so I went in and I cut it at the top. So now I know where to place this between those pencil lines, making sure I've got even space on either side, and then I can press this down. Immediately it wants to warp the bottom of the card. I'm fine with that. This piece I haven't put through my die cutting machine. If you do that, if you put your pieces through the die cutting machine, make sure you put a protective piece of copy paper on the top, nothing that already has an indentation from die cutting or anything, and that will protect your piece from any blemishes that you have on your cutting plate. So, and now I can put my foam tape on the back here. I will do this off camera, but I can't remember what brand this is. I haven't got a clue where I bought it, so I will use some liquid glue as well on this before I put it down, and also on the other side, just so that I've got the dimension from the foam tape, but I know I've got enough glue on it. Here's my second card. In hindsight, I should have moved the picture up a little bit, but I thought I'd maybe make a little, like a thought bubble or something in the future when I know who I'm giving this to. Yeah, I think this is definitely really cute, and I like this one as well. And I was thinking whilst I was working off camera, for me this is about enjoying the process, not necessarily about the result. That's why I said I might just use some of the pictures in my glue book, or they might go in the bin. But I think this is what I can only imagine, having said that, but I can imagine that this is what the technique is about. Enjoying yourself, have this sort of meditative moment. It's not about thinking, oh, who I'm going to give this to, is this really good enough? So I suggest give it a try. Have a play with this, enjoy it, don't think about the end product too much, and yeah, that is really my suggestion. So you might not get the perfect card out of it, but you might enjoy this. Well, for me it was a new technique. Yeah, and if you like this idea, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of what I'm creating, you might want to subscribe to my channel. I'd be very happy about that. And I'll see you soon with another video.